Welcome along to another big match build-up show, and after the embarrassment at the Etihad, seems like it's gone from bad to worse for Saints. Now we go into this week, it could well be make or break for Mark Hughes, and on this week's show I speak to Ben from the Rookery End blog, and we speculate how much longer we're going to give Mark Hughes. Plenty of questions to ask and whether he could be here after the weekend.
I would say even a draw won't save him on Saturday. I think it has to be. I think it's a win. I think he needs a win and a performance to save that job, because I don't think a shinned winner in the 89th minute would save his job. I don't think it would. And to be honest, I don't think it should. In my opinion, I think he's overstayed his welcome. But yeah, looks like it's going to come down to this game.
On top of that though, do stay tuned for our full conversation. We delve deeper into the underlying problems on and off the pitch, so do stay with us and join the conversation. As for the opposition this week though, I speak to John from the Watford podcast from the Rookery End, and he tells us why the Hornets are buzzing with their start to the season.
Oh yeah, amazingly satisfied. The points tally, definitely. We are, as most Premier League clubs, are looking at that 40 points. Once you get there, then let's have a think about it, but that's always got to be the aim. And we've got some good wins, and even our losses don't seem to be. You can see why.
So stick with us for the rest of the show then for some important travel news heading to Southampton this weekend on the trains. Feel free to join the conversation at any point in the comments below. And hello if you're watching with us on the new YouTube Premiere feature. And also, if you want to download the show, it is available in the card above my head for iTunes. And whilst you're there, please feel free to leave us a review. Tell us how we're doing, whether you like the new format, and we'd really appreciate it. So let's find out whether we think it could well be make or break for Mark Hughes this weekend as Southampton prepare to play Watford. So welcome along to our first half of our big match build-up show, and a new debut for the preview show this week. I'd like to introduce Ben from the Archers Road blog, or the Archers Road End blog. Ben, actually, you might have been seen on the preview show for the season and also the end of season show. Thanks for coming by, mate.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me. Love the ugly inside, so it's great. It's actually an honour to be on, so thanks.
Oh, thanks, mate. And well, I suppose as usual, we'll start about the previous match, and probably a lot to be said about this one. I mean, where shall we start? Really, I mean, what can be said that hasn't been said already? A 6-1 humiliating defeat at Man City. I mean, is it sensational City, or is it just a stark reflection how pitiful Saints have become?
I think it's a mixture of both, to be perfectly honest. I'd say that, yeah, City are just an excellent side. I think that it really exposes just the gap, the inequality in this league, that City were able to just absolutely run away with it. But let's not let ourselves off the hook, because as good as City were, we were just as awful, absolutely all over the place. So soft in the middle, so soft out. A lot's been made of performances from Højbjerg this season, and a lot was made of the supposed improvement in defence over the past two games, which would prove to be a false dawn. But the truth is, we have defensive midfielders who get caught out of position very easily, tactically very naive, defenders who, when they come up against the top sides, they're just not good enough. I'd say if they come up against a top 10 attacking lineup, they're just not good enough. And we got absolutely torn to pieces. We deserved it. It was an atrocious display.
And before Danny Ings put that penalty in, I think Wesley Hoot scored two own goals, more than goals we actually scored ourselves.
I know that he gets a hard time. I get that he gets a hard time, but he's a professional footballer and he is paid to perform at a certain level. And whilst I've seen him perform admirably, and whilst I've been at St Mary's or when I've been in away games, there are people who give him absolutely no quarter at all. He can make. I remember against Bournemouth last season when we were 1-0 up, he made, a goal saving tackle, and people around me were just back to knocking him again minutes later. But he needs to improve, and I think that he was never signed to be that senior player, and he's found himself in that position by a combination of kind of bad luck and bad business, and it shows. He's just not without an experienced player beside him. He's just not good enough. He just doesn't perform at this level without someone experienced next to him, and it just doesn't seem to be working, because he doesn't just need experience beside him, he needs good experience beside him. I think defensively he's still incredibly naive, and I think that rawness really shows through.
They turned all of our defenders inside out, really, I think, on the afternoon. And as you say, the defending was atrocious. And if you look at the replays, at one point we had 8 defenders afraid to put a boot in the penalty area. I think he himself was nutmegged almost to the build-up in that sort of sequence, let's say. But they were queuing up to strike it. This is sub-Sunday League standard, or is that being generous?
I mean, it was like they were dribbling around bollards. It was basically. It was a dribbling around bollards. I think it looked like a training game at that point. It looked like they were playing against a load of kids, and to be honest, it was men against boys out there. People grasping for positives and about the fact that we scored a goal, and that annoyed me, because we scored a goal, but it was given to us, and you should dispatch penalties. That's not the fact that we scored a penalty. Yeah, that's great. It means absolutely nothing. The problem that we have is converting them from open play, and I haven't seen anything to show that we're anywhere close to getting to that level yet. And where does I hate to be someone who kind of apportions blame, but where does it ultimately lie? And I think that's the question we're going to be need to answer.
Saints, they wheeled out PM and Højbjerg after the match, standing up to press again, furious, apologising to the fans. And you had a few words to say about this over on Twitter. But how many times can he do that this season?
The words mean absolutely nothing. I know that he seems, Højbjerg seems like a decent, honest lad. And it's cynical, because the club will always put him out there. They'll always put him or Oriel out there after a bad defeat, because they want to spin it and they want to wheel out a nice guy to try and deflect some of the flack from some of the utterly disgraceful performances. And where was Ryan Bertrand? Ryan Bertrand is our captain. Captains stand up. Captains come out and they front up after those sort of games and go, you know what, we were not good enough. And I like Bertrand as a player. And when I hear him in interviews as an individual and as a person, he strikes me as a nice guy. As a captain, no, not at all. I think he's a dreadful captain, and I think it's a terrible decision that he was ever handed that captaincy. We've had a succession of utterly ridiculous, captain choices since we got rid of Font. I mean, given the captaincy, it all started to go wrong, in my opinion, when they gave the captaincy to Van Dijk. It's clear they gave him the big bumper deal, and we all know what bumper deals mean. Bumper deals are just there to protect the price when it comes to the summer, so that we don't get our trousers pulled down. We did anyway. That's by the by. But giving him the captaincy alongside it, surely they must have known, or there must have been an inkling at the club that psychologically somebody like Van Dijk wouldn't be sticking around, because you need a captain who's going to be there for a few years. On that logic, seems fine to hand it to Bertrand. But when you actually see it in practice, no, he's not a good captain. I don't buy the whole quiet authority thing. To be a captain, you have to be out there. You have to be organising players during set pieces. Good captains, you see them sometimes physically moving players before set pieces. You don't see that from him. I don't think he's a captain, and I think that the fact that they wheel out Højbjerg whenever we lose heavily, we know Pierre cares. We know he's one of the few players who cares, and he comes across very well. But his words I'm sorry, they make absolutely no difference at all. It's all down to performance. They have to pull their pants up, pull their trousers up, and have to perform on Saturday or just shut up.
And I think the more they wheel Pierre out in the press interviews, the novelty wears off. But I think it is fair to say that, you know, most fans, including myself, is all but lost faith. How much longer can the board ignore this dramatic demise? I mean, of course, a lot of fans rightly calling for their head as well.
Yeah, I mean, the board are never going to sack themselves. Let's be honest. But you look at Les Reed. Les Reed reports into Ralph Kruger. Ross Wilson reports into Les Reed. And you start to look at it and you start to think, over the past 2 seasons in particular, they've eased off the gas a little bit. I think that on the footballing side of things, someone has, you know, terrible metaphor, they've taken their eye off the ball essentially. And at the moment, we have a manager who can't really make up his mind. Had a whole pre-season. I mean, let's not forget that as well. He had a whole pre-season. This isn't, he came in a couple of weeks before the season started. He's been here since, March, April time, and he's had enough time with that squad to get them playing in the way that he should be playing. And he was backed in the transfer window in the summer, and he experimented with formations all during the summer. Within about 45 minutes of the opening game of the season, tore up all of it and just went back to what he knew, went back to 2 banks of 4 and 2 up top, which is what a lot of people were calling for. But now we kind of look at it and we go, well, goes a bit deeper than that, because even the strikers aren't really producing. Yeah. So, I mean, my view is, there's a lot of finger pointing will probably go on the footballing side of the club. Mark Hughes will say he's not been supported. I don't necessarily agree with that, and I don't think he's a fantastic manager. As much as I appreciate what Les Reed has done at the club, and I think that a lot of people do tend to forget over the past few years that he was with us during that kind of rise from League One back into the Premier League, and he has to take credit for the Pochettino appointment. He has to take credit for the Koeman appointment. And that summer when we lost so many players and replaced them with high quality players, he deserves a tremendous amount of credit for that. But it doesn't mean that things don't go sour. It doesn't mean that people don't need to go when the time is right. And I think that at this time, it's a good time for him to go. I think it's a good time for us to let him go, to be perfectly honest, because his last few decisions could have potentially catastrophic outcomes for the club.
Yeah, and I think the bottom line is that the buck stops at the board, and we need to see some accountability from whoever it is that is running the show, whether it is Les, whether it is Ross, whether it is Ralph himself. But Mark Hughes is clearly not the man to take us forward, and judging by the reports, this could be make or break this weekend. And I've read hundreds of comments, probably across our forum, our social media sites, and I'm struggling to find just one person supporting Mark Hughes. And surely, if we do lose to Watford at the weekend, his position becomes, for me, untenable. Currently, he's not the favourite, but he was favourite before Monday night. He's at 3-1 to next Premier League manager to lose their position. He's only behind the odds on Fulham's Slavica Jokanovic.
With regards to Jokanovic, I don't think he's a bad manager. I just think that he has been incredibly naive, and I don't think they strengthened in the right places in the summer. I mean, clearly they didn't. I mean, the fact that they were after Matt Targett, you can tell why they were so desperate to get hold of him now. Because they really needed defenders, basically. But Hughes, I would say even a draw won't save him on Saturday. I think it has to be. I think it's a win. I think he needs a win and a performance to save that job, because I don't think a shinned winner in the 89th minute would save his job. I don't think it would. And to be honest, I don't think it should. It's almost frustrating having this conversation because he's almost, he's proven that he's not been up to the task with us. We're poorly organised, and he's had all this time with these players, and he hasn't communicated his ideas. In my opinion, I think he's overstayed his welcome. But yeah, looks like it's going to come down to this game.
I think it is. I think it should be make or break, and there is a statistic that is quite damning that he's got the lowest win percentage of any Saints manager with at least 20 games at 21%. You know, worse than Pochettino, worse than Brentford and was it Port Vale in the Championship. And worse than quite a few others as well. But Watford are a strange team this weekend. I mean, it is difficult to judge what sort of side will turn out this weekend because, they'll lose 4-0 at home to Bournemouth one weekend and then go away the next few weeks and comprehensively beat Wolves and Huddersfield. But last weekend they lose at Newcastle. I mean, what do you think we can expect of Watford?
Well, that's exactly it, isn't it? I mean, they're the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde team. Clearly, there's talent in the ranks. They're a very good side, quite similar to us in some respects. When we were under Koeman, we were capable of playing exceptional, wonderful attacking football. But then, people forget with when we had Koeman, we had Mane and Pella, that we were still capable of absolute stinkers at times.
Yeah, and I think we need some inspiration as well. But last time in the league against Watford, we were robbed 3 points of 3 points because of Decore's handball in the build-up, sort of basically knocking it over McCarthy in the 90th minute, a sucker punch, which would have actually eventually left us a little clearer of the relegation zone. I mean, last time at home as well as St Mary's, they won quite comfortably 2-0. But what's your prediction this time out, though? Hughes has called this game huge, and Højbjerg equally has called for a massive reaction.
Yeah, I think that we've had a lot of chat. I think that with regards to the last it's interesting that the last Watford away game with the kind of handball in the 90th minute, because I think that was that encapsulated our season to a T. We were strong in spells, we were absolutely dismal in others. With regards to this game, I can't see us winning it. I don't think we'll lose. I think this will be a 1-1. I just can't see us winning. I think that it's got to that stage now where players know when a manager's under pressure. We had Lamina today come out and supposedly kind of give a vote of confidence in Hughes. He's not going to say otherwise, is he? I mean, he knows which way his bread's buttered. It's unprofessional for a player to criticise their coach. I can't see us winning on Saturday. And I think that I don't want us to lose. I know a lot of people are saying, I'd take a loss so we can get rid of Hughes. No, my priority, I would never go out there, I would never turn up at a game wanting my team to lose. And I think the people who want us to lose on Saturday, just so they can get rid of Hughes, have a look at yourself, because it's cynical. And that's not what football should be about. You go there, you turn up, you support the team. Whatever I think of Mark Hughes, whatever I think of those players, minute 1 to the 90th minute, +3, +4, whatever, I am 100% behind that team. Now, in my heart, that's what it is, but in my head, I can't see us getting anything other than a draw.
And I think it's fair to say a lot of fans, like we said earlier on, have lost faith. But that is the confidence in our team at the moment. But before we do sign off, though, mate, just tell everybody, remind us where we can find you if they want to read your blog.
You can find me at archersroadend.wordpress.com. You can find me spouting off on Twitter at archersroadend. Same on Facebook, same on Instagram. And just say hello. But once again, thanks for having me on. It's been great. I've been reading The Ugly Inside since I used to go to the Dell. So it's a real honour to be on here. So thanks once again.
And we appreciate your time, Ben. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll catch up soon, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much, mate. Nice one.
So once again, a big thanks to Ben from the Archers Road End blog. Do feel free to head over to Twitter to follow him for some more writing, some more ramblings, and do check out his blog for more as well. But judging by our conversation this week, I think it's we're in agreement that we feel it's both inevitable whatever happens this weekend. But I'm interested to find out what you guys think. Do you think it's make or break for Mark Hughes? Let me know in the comments below. As for your travel news, though, if you're heading into St Mary's and Southampton this weekend on the trains, be aware there are bus replacements from Basingstoke onwards towards Southampton Central due to the lines between Winchester and Eastleigh. They are closed because of some engineering works this weekend. If it's not engineering works, it's strikes, which we have to look forward to. Well, I say that loosely in a week or so's time as we're heading up to Fulham at the end of the month. So do check your journey before you leave. Add an extra half an hour on top of whatever you're doing for your trains. But now is time to turn our attention to the opposition and onto my conversation to find out all things Watford this weekend. So welcome along to our second half and welcome to our opposition outlook. This time we've got another familiar face to join us from the Watford end, from the Rookery End, should I say, and John from the Watford podcast from the Rookery End. John, how are you, mate?
Yeah, well, we're doing all right. We're having a good season so far.
And off the pitch, really, your podcast doing really well. And before we get going, congratulations on being nominated for once again for the FSF Club Podcast of the Year.
Yeah, it's lovely. We do our podcast 9 years now. And the best thing about it is we don't get the award, but it was just comments from fans saying, they listen to us every week. And you think, well, at least 3 of you do it. That's nice.
I'm sure they voted quite a few times then to get yourselves out for a night out in the Tower of London. Back to the matters on the pitch then. So far, I guess we could say just over a quarter of the way through the season, 19 points. You've got to be satisfied with that after 11 games played. Oh, yeah, amazingly satisfied.
The points tally, definitely. We are, as most Premier League clubs, looking at that 40 points. Once you get there, then let's have a think about it. But that's always got to be the aim. And, we've got some good wins. And even our losses don't seem to be... You can see why. When sometimes in football, when you've got a team going and you're going, I just don't know what we're going to do. We're just terrible. Everything needs to change. And you can't really pinpoint why things are going bad. Arsenal, we went toe-to-toe with them and they just showed in a few minutes what a top team should do. Fulham was probably a most frustrating game we had. It was a draw and we could have put it to bed a bit earlier. And Bournemouth, well, they were just Bournemouth. Being the way that they are, and they sort of cleverly beat us, and we were punished for a double yellow and a penalty, and all of a sudden, penalty for Bournemouth. How surprising! But then, the loss this last week against Newcastle was frustrating because we created plenty of chances, but we just didn't quite put them away. But I'm talking about the losses there, but we played some good football. And Gracia seems to having had a whole summer with the side, really sort of carved out some a team and some options, let's say.
Yeah, and over the past few years, really, you've become a bit of a merry-go-round for managers. But as you rightly pointed out already, some of your results. For me, I've been saying to a lot of people actually recently, Watford are a very strange side, very inconsistent from what I can see. Playing really well, turning over Tottenham as well earlier on the season, going close with United, and like you've already touched upon, the draw with Fulham, and a damaging defeat against Bournemouth, but convincing win straight after that against Wolves and Huddersfield.
Yeah, I think what we thought, we had, Deeney and Gray up front as a 2, so it was a 4-4-2 at the beginning of the season, and he didn't, Javi didn't change anything. We had the same lineup, and that was good because it was consistent and we weren't getting problems of injuries. And then the big change sort of came when we played Wolves away, which is amazing because they haven't changed things at all, really, their starting 11. And we bring in Deulofeu, who's playing with Pereira, and all of a sudden only has success up front rather than Deeney and Gray. And you thought, oh, that's a big change. Is that going to, hey, let's just get a draw in a way? But Deulofeu and Pereira together just sort of have this lovely creativity and this sort of desire to prove themselves because of everything they've sort of been through in their careers. Deulofeu, in and out at Barcelona, loans here and there, and then the following game against Huddersfield, they just absolutely showed what talents they are with some amazing finishes to their game, which unfortunately didn't turn up last week at Newcastle. So the team has changed, but not dramatically, and never for the wrong reasons. It felt like on Saturday against Newcastle was not that we were complacent, but didn't quite know what to do differently, and because things went bad. We were making the chances, we just weren't finishing them, and the feeling leaving St James's Park was, well, if they sort themselves out after the loss to Bournemouth, to the win against Wolves, then maybe Southampton don't want to be on the end of a week of pondering on a loss away at Newcastle.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the less said about our defeat, the better. But, a narrow defeat and gives Newcastle a bit of extra space. Well, closing the gap really at the bottom of that table. But, Pereira, Deulofeu, some very good technical players there. And they have been around the block a bit, actually. But there's something about Watford midfielders. Last season, it was a breakout star from Richarlison. This season, you got Pereira knocking on everyone's fantasy league team.
Well, he's a really interesting fella because... he's been called up to the Argentina squad last round, and I think this time as well. But he, was at Juventus, injury prone, and he came to us as an injury prone player. Could see the wow, could see the greatness when he played in the first season, but then got injured and didn't, and seemed to be sheepish, let's say. But you sort of know that's him protecting himself and him wanting to make sure he was fit enough. And he really seems that way this year. He seems much more confident within his body. And like I say, he's expressing himself. He's much more happier when he's out on the left, and he can run at you and you can cut in and try and find the far corner. He's done it a few times. It looks lovely. But there's a thing about the Pozzos and who they buy. That even though we bought him from Juventus and Deulofeu from Barcelona, that sounds like it's a big thing for a club like Watford to do. But it's a mentality. I think they're buying. It's not just the ability they're buying. It's this desire to prove themselves and to want to make a step up. We've got a lot of young lads we bought, like Will Hughes, who is a player who wants to come and shine in the Premier League, that he wasn't getting that opportunity at Derby. I think this, Deulofeu and Pereira want to come to Watford to shine, maybe to go to a top six in the Premier League, but definitely to go to a Champions League club after they've been a Watford player for a little while, hopefully.
It's clear to see that he is going to be one of your key players as well. But at the moment, you're getting some success out your centre forwards, right?
Yeah. Isaac's a really weird fan. I don't know if you know what happened to him last year. So he went out on loan last year after he was the front page of the Sun on a Sunday for drinking 2 bottles of Baileys, and maybe talking to the wrong sort of girls. Let's just leave it at that. And we saw him as a really raw talent. You could see something in there, but he was a young player who came in. And this year he sort of really he's come in, and you can see, maybe because of the newspaper headlines that he got and his year out on loan in Spain, but he's much more focused on being a proper success, grown up in many ways. I mean, even on Instagram, he was back in England early with his own personal coach, sort of preparing his body for the season. So you can see his head is in really good place. You can still see the rawness, the lack of it, and his finishing isn't 100%, but he's a handful. He's an absolute handful. And when you've got Dancy Pereira and Dancy Deulofeu either side of him, it's a contrast, but it's a good contrast to have.
Yeah, he seems like a big bullish brute centre forward. Actually quite a few of them you've got on your books. You've got Okaka, who can come off the bench as well. Troy Deeney, who's been out with injury recently, hasn't he? What do we know the extent of that? Is he going to return at the weekend?
Possibly, but I can't see him starting straight away. Success is big, but he's quick. But the other two are fairly big. He breaches the two. Where you've got Deeney one end and Andre Gray the other. He sort of really fits in the middle of both sides of things. And if he did add finishing, much more confident finishing, he'd be pretty good. And Okaka, has been injured, and his first appearance on Saturday absolutely skied the ball when he should have put it in. But that just it must come down to the fact that he hasn't played that much football. Yeah,
and big centre forwards, big bullish, fast centre forwards. In fact, strikes fear in the heart of defenders for Southampton Football Club at the moment. I'm sure Vestergaard or Hoot, is probably likely to put another ball in the back of the net. But what do you think? What do you think? What Watford's approach is going to be at the weekend? Then obviously Saints are a wounded animal, let's say, and Watford perhaps want to bounce back from their defeat at Newcastle last weekend.
I can't see Javi changing much. He's only tinkered when needed. We will see a change in midfield. Capoue got his 5th yellow. So what you're going to see is a young English talent who made his debut for England against Spain. So Nathaniel Chalabar is probably going to come back, and he really excited us. With Decore, who will be still part of that team this weekend. Him and Richarlison and Gray at the beginning of last season were really exciting. And Nathaniel had an injury that took him the whole season until the last game of the season, where he made an appearance away at Manchester United. Went away with England for that pre-tournament camp, but didn't play, of course. So he's coming back with something to prove for lots of people, but not necessarily himself. And he needs to. This is a great opportunity for him to show what he can do, because Capoue was playing really well. I mean, that's a man who used to disappear the minute the winter ball came out in the Premier League. But he's been playing fantastically well, and we wondered how Nathaniel would get back into the squad. So that's probably going to be the only change. I think Success will keep that starting place, maybe with Gray, as he did coming on for him. If, like we said, we were behind both Gray, Success and Akaku on the pitch at one point at the end of the game against Newcastle.
All that being said then, John, what do you think your score prediction is going to be? Obviously, the last 2 meetings we were robbed of a win at the Vicarage Road. I don't remember that. I think we do somehow. Probably put more fuel on the fire on the VAR argument. And you won 2-0 down at St Mary's last season. What do you think it's going to be this weekend?
I think I always get my prediction is always 1-0 Watford. I never go so crazy on it, but I do think we will have. I really want to see a great Watford performance, and if we can finish what we couldn't finish on Saturday against Newcastle, then we should hopefully get the win. If Watford play the way we have been playing, it should be possible, but we also know it isn't always possible.
Unpredictability from Watford at the moment, but. As a bonus as well, it is the month of Movember, and I asked you before we came on air, let's say, I asked you to think about your favourite memory from a Watford player over years gone by, sporting a fabulous facial hair as well.
Well, I started following Watford in the late 80s when moustaches were magical. And there are many. In fact, we go to these events called Tales from the Vicarage where a lot of ex-Watford players come in and they've lost their moustaches. I would have gone with Tony Coton, our Watford goalkeeper from back then. Strong, no-nonsense sort of character. But I sort of went with the guy called Steve Sims. And Steve Sims, it was he had a good size upper lip, so it had some nice height to it, which not all moustaches have. It wasn't flary, but then moustaches weren't like that in the 1980s. But it was a dense one as well. Sometimes beards and moustaches are a little bit weak. It was dense. It was high. It was a good, solid moustache. Sounds like Franny Benali's caterpillar he had on his upper lip from the early 90s, late 80s when he's a part of the youth team. I found out today that one of your co-hosts, Mike, his father was also diagnosed with prostate cancer. And I want to say big congratulations on everyone involved in the 26-mile walk across London to Wembley, all for prostate cancer. And of course, that is one of the funds that we're trying to raise for Movember as well. Yeah, we're really lucky. We had fantastic support from the Watford family and the football family with that. Mike got a lot of support through the podcast, and we were able to raise about £5,000 in the end during that walk in July. And it was fantastic. It was really good. It was brilliant, and we're still hoping to raise some more. But Mike's dad has had all positive news since his treatment. That's wonderful news. And John, I appreciate your time as well. Thanks for joining us. And where can we find you? Always at Watford Podcast on your social media streams, be it Twitter, Instagram. Download it via Google Podcast or Apple Podcasts from the Rookery End. Excellent stuff, and hopefully we catch up after the weekend. See you later. Thanks again then to John from the Rookery End, the Watford podcast, and do feel free to head over to the FSF website where you can vote for them as your favourite club podcast of the year. Also,
please feel free to donate to our Movember cause, raising funds for men's health, particularly prostate cancer, testicular cancer and suicide prevention. The link is available in the description below and in the comments below. But that's it for us then for this week. Do let us know how you think we're going to get on at the weekend. Is it a make or break for Mark Hughes? Thanks for sticking with us. All I've got to say now is, come on you Saints.